The harder you try to control life, the heavier it starts to feel. You plan more, you think more, you worry more, and somehow everything still feels tight, strained, exhausting. Most people walk into a new year gripping the wheel with white knuckles, convinced that if they loosen their grip even slightly, everything will collapse. But Stoic philosophy teaches something both uncomfortable and freeing. The chaos is not coming from life itself. It's coming from your need to control what was never yours. Marcus Aurelius wrote that peace begins the moment you accept what you cannot command and govern only what truly belongs to you. Not outcomes, not other people, not timing. Only your actions, your standards, your response. This video is not about giving up or manifesting fantasies. It's about standing firmly where you actually have power and letting everything else move on its own. As 2026 approaches, this shift matters more than ever, because when you stop forcing life, you finally gain the strength to live it. 1. The illusion of control is what exhausts you. Most of your stress isn't caused by what's happening. It's caused by the voice inside you that keeps whispering, "This shouldn't be happening, and I need to fix it right now." You try to manage the tone in every conversation. You try to predict every reaction. You try to stay one step ahead of disappointment to keep the peace. From the outside, it can look responsible, mature, even strategic. Inside, it feels like holding your breath all day. That's the illusion of control. It convinces you that if you think hard enough, plan far enough, and worry long enough, you can prevent pain, you can avoid rejection, you can stop chaos before it starts. The price you pay is invisible at first because you label it as being prepared. But it isn't preparation, it's slow, daily exhaustion. Here's how you know you're trapped in it. You can't relax even when nothing is wrong. You sit down, but your mind keeps scanning. You finish one task, and your brain instantly opens 5 more tabs. You experience a good moment, and instead of enjoying it, you start guarding it, afraid it might disappear the second you stop protecting it. That is not peace. That is fear wearing the mask of discipline. Stoicism doesn't ask you to stop caring. It asks you to stop pretending you are in charge of everything. Because the moment you confuse responsibility with control, you become a prisoner of outcomes. Think about the areas of your life you've tried to control that were never yours to begin with. You can't control whether people understand you. You can't control whether they appreciate you. You can't control how fast things unfold. You can't control loyalty. You can't control whether life places obstacles in your path. Yet, most people burn their best energy fighting these battles anyway. They rehearse arguments in their head. They rewrite messages. They try to win respect by explaining more. They try to earn love by giving more. They try to secure the future by obsessing more. The result is always the same: more anxiety, not more certainty. Because control is not something you gain by tightening your grip. It's something you regain by narrowing your focus. Epictetus captured this with one of the most brutal Stoic truths: some things are up to you, and some things are not. That's not motivation. It's a diagnosis. Ignore it, and you suffer. Follow it, and you get your life back. Here's what the illusion of control does to you day after day. It keeps your mind on duty even when you're home. It turns everything into a threat to your stability. It makes other people feel like variables you're responsible for managing. It pushes you to chase perfect timing, perfect certainty, perfect outcomes. And when those don't appear, you don't just feel disappointed, you feel unsafe, because your mind tied peace to something you cannot command. That's why you can't rest. That's why you can't relax. Not because you're weak, but because you're trying to hold the ocean still. A Stoic doesn't calm himself by repeating that everything will be fine. He calms himself by telling the truth. Even if it's not fine, I can still act with strength. That shift changes everything. Let me make it real. Imagine you're waiting for a message. You tell yourself you don't care, but your body says otherwise. You check your phone. You reread the last thing you sent. You start building stories in your head. Did I say something wrong? Are they pulling away? Should I send another text? That's not love. That's not connection. That's control anxiety. Or imagine you're working hard, but the results aren't arriving fast enough. You start forcing. You add pressure. You compare yourself to others. You overwork. You burn out. Then you criticize yourself for needing rest. That's not ambition. That's the illusion that the universe owes you a timeline. Or imagine trying to keep everyone happy. You manage your words. You manage your expressions. You swallow your boundaries. You avoid conflict. And one day you wake up and realize you've been controlling the peace for so long that you lost yourself. That is the cost. Stoicism offers a clean, sharp exit. Stop trying to control what you can't, not as a slogan, but as a discipline. Because when you try to control everything, you become reactive, you become tense, you become addicted to certainty. And a man addicted to certainty is easy to break because life is not designed to give you certainty. But when you accept what isn't yours to command, you become steady. You stop wrestling shadows. You stop wasting energy. You start sleeping again. You start thinking clearly. You start living from your values instead of your anxiety. So here's your first Stoic move for 2026. It's simple. Notice where you're forcing. Notice where you're gripping. Notice where your peace depends on someone else's behavior. Then say this slowly, like a vow. I release what isn't mine. I govern myself. That's not passive, that's power. Because the strongest man in the room is not the one controlling everything. It's the one who refuses to be controlled by the need to control. 2. What you actually control and what you never will. Once you see how the illusion of control drains you, the next question becomes unavoidable. What is actually worth your energy? Stoicism is not about doing less, it's about placing effort where it truly matters. Most people live as if everything is their responsibility. Every reaction, every outcome, every misunderstanding, and when life doesn't cooperate, they feel personally attacked. Stoic philosophy draws a hard line here, and your peace depends on respecting it. You control your judgments, you control your choices, you control your effort, you control your standards, you control your response. That's it. Everything else, other people's opinions, timing, luck, fairness, recognition, final results, is not under your command. You may influence some of it. You may prepare for parts of it, but you do not own it. Confusing influence with control is where anxiety begins. That's why two people can face the same setback and have completely different inner experiences. One collapses, the other stays steady. The difference isn't strength, it's clarity. Epictetus called this the dividing line of freedom. Place your peace on the wrong side of that line and you give it away. Place it on the right side and nothing can take it from you. Look at how this plays out in real life. At work, you can control whether you show up prepared, focused, and disciplined. You cannot control whether your effort is immediately recognized. If your sense of worth depends on praise, you'll always feel unstable. But if it's tied to the quality of your work, you remain calm, even when progress is slow. In relationships, you can control how honestly you speak, how clearly you set boundaries, and how respectfully you act. You cannot control whether someone chooses to meet you there. Trying to manage their emotions or behavior doesn't deepen connection. It erodes self-respect. With your future, you can control your daily habits, your learning, and your consistency. You cannot control when results arrive. The moment you stop demanding certainty, you stop punishing yourself for being human. This distinction sounds simple, but it requires discipline because your mind constantly tries to expand the control list to feel safe. It says things like, if I just explain better, if I try harder, if I wait one more week. And before you realize it, you're exhausted again. The Stoic response is not to argue with life, it's to narrow your focus. Here's a practical exercise that changes everything if you actually do it. Take a sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left, write, mine to govern. On the right, write, not mine to command. On the left, list your actions, effort, discipline, values, and reactions. On the right, list outcomes, opinions, timing, and other people's choices. Now read the right column slowly. That's where your stress has been living. Every time you feel tension rise, ask one question. Is this mine to govern? If yes, act. If no, release. That single pause is the difference between a reactive life and a composed one. When you stop trying to control what isn't yours, something unexpected happens. You don't become careless, you become precise. Your energy sharpens, your decisions clean up, your mind quiets down. Because peace isn't found by expanding control, it's found by honoring its limits. Once you respect that line, you stop asking life to behave. You start asking yourself to act well. That's where real power lives. 3. Why relaxation is not weakness, it's precision. Most people hear the word relax and translate it as stop caring, lower standards, let things slide. That misunderstanding is why so many disciplined people stay tense all the time. They believe that if they ease up even slightly, everything they've built will collapse. So they stay tight, alert, guarded, always bracing for impact. Stoicism rejects that completely. To a Stoic, relaxation is not the absence of effort, it's the absence of wasted effort. Think about a skilled fighter. The beginner is stiff, breathing shallow, muscles locked, swinging wildly. The experienced one is calm, loose, precise. He moves less, but every movement counts, not because he cares less, but because he understands where force actually works. That's what Stoic calm looks like. Anxiety makes you overreact. You talk too much. You push when patience would be stronger. You rush decisions that require clarity. Anxiety feels productive, but it isn't. It blurs judgment and drains energy. Calm does the opposite. Calm sharpens perception. When you relax properly, you see things sooner. You hear what people are really saying. You notice patterns instead of getting lost in noise. You don't confuse urgency with importance. That's why calm people often seem lucky. Life appears to work around them, not because they're passive, but because they're not interfering with panic. Here's the Stoic insight most people miss. Tension is not control. Tension is your nervous system trying to predict and prevent pain. It's survival mode. Useful in emergencies, destructive as a lifestyle. When you live tense, everything feels like a threat. Every delay feels personal. Every silence feels dangerous. Relaxation allows rational control to take over. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to slow the mind before responding, because reaction is cheap, but judgment is everything. A calm mind chooses better words, better timing, and better boundaries. Make this concrete. When someone challenges you and you're tense, you defend immediately, you explain, you justify, you try to win, and in doing so, you give away leverage. When you're calm, you pause, you listen, you respond only if it serves your values. Sometimes you say less, sometimes you say nothing at all. And often, that restraint carries more weight than force ever could. In decision-making, anxiety rushes you towards certainty. You choose weaker options just to escape discomfort. Calm allows you to wait, gather information, and choose deliberately. That's not weakness, that's precision. Stoic relaxation is disciplined stillness. The ability to remain internally unmoved while externally engaged. You still act, You still work, you still train, but you don't thrash. Here's a simple practice that reveals the difference instantly. The next time you feel pressure to act fast, pause for one full breath longer than you want to. Just one. Let the urgency pass without obeying it. Then ask, what response aligns with my standards, not my anxiety? That question alone filters out half the mistakes most people make. Relaxation done right makes you harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to rush. It turns you from someone life pushes around into someone who moves with intent. Don't confuse calm with surrender. Calm isn't letting go of responsibility. It's letting go of panic. And once panic is gone, control finally becomes possible. 4. Stop forcing outcomes. Start governing yourself. Forcing is what happens when effort turns into desperation. You push conversations to go a certain way. You push timelines to move faster. You push yourself harder even after clarity is gone, and you call it discipline. But underneath, it's fear. Fear that if you don't force the result, nothing will happen. Stoicism draws a sharp distinction here. You are responsible for your conduct, not for how the world responds to it. When you forget that, you start living in constant negotiation with outcomes, and every negotiation costs you dignity. Look at how forcing shows up in everyday life. At work, you chase approval instead of mastery. You over-explain your decisions. You rush deliverables not because they're ready, but because you're afraid of judgment. The result isn't excellence, it's burnout. In relationships, forcing looks like needing closure, needing reassurance, needing guarantees. You try to secure emotions instead of embodying standards. The harder you push, the more unstable the connection becomes. In personal growth, forcing looks like obsessing over milestones instead of habits. You measure your worth by progress charts instead of daily integrity. One slow week, and you feel like you're failing. The Stoic response is not to quit striving, it's to shift the target. Marcus Aurelius never told himself, "I must succeed today." He told himself, "I must act in accordance with reason." That single change removes enormous pressure. When you govern yourself, your focus turns inward to what you can actually execute with excellence. Did I show up prepared? Did I act with discipline? Did I speak honestly? Did I hold my boundaries? Did I do the work even when no one was watching? These questions stabilize you. They anchor you to something solid. Outcomes fluctuate. Standards do not. Here's the paradox. The less you force results, the more consistent your actions become. And consistency is what quietly produces results over time. Forcing creates tension. Tension creates errors. Errors create self-doubt. Governing yourself creates the opposite cycle. You act with intention. You detach from immediate payoff. You build trust in your own character. That trust is what keeps you steady when progress feels slow or unpredictable. Make this practical. Instead of asking, "How do I make this work?" ask, "How do I behave well here, regardless of outcome?" That question reclaims your power instantly. No one can take away your discipline. No one can block your integrity. No one can stop you from choosing your response. When you stop forcing life to comply, life stops pushing back. Not because it becomes easy, but because you're no longer at war with it. You don't rise by overpowering outcomes. You rise by becoming someone who doesn't need to. That is what it means to govern yourself. 5. Letting life work is a discipline, not luck. When people hear "let go," they imagine passivity, sitting back and hoping things magically improve. That misunderstanding is why disciplined people resist the idea. They don't want to drift. They want progress. Stoicism agrees. Letting life work is not doing nothing. It's doing your part fully, then refusing to poison it with attachment to results. Luck is careless. Discipline is deliberate. Stoic letting go belongs to discipline. Most people don't suffer because they lack effort. They suffer because they interfere with their own effort through impatience, expectation, and emotional bargaining. They do the work, then hover over it. They make a decision, then second-guess it. They commit, then constantly check if it's working yet. That hovering breaks flow. Think about anything you've ever done well. Your best performances, physical, creative, mental, came when you were fully engaged but strangely unattached, focused, not desperate, serious, not tense. That state isn't accidental, it's trained. The Stoics understood that once you've acted with reason and discipline, clinging to outcomes adds nothing. It subtracts. It replaces clarity with anxiety. Epictetus said it plainly. Do your duty, then accept whatever follows. Not because you're indifferent, but because you respect reality. This is where most people fail. They want guarantees before they act calmly. Stoicism reverses the order. You act calmly without guarantees. That isn't naive. That's courage. Letting life work means trusting a process you can't fully see while refusing to abandon your standards. You train, you prepare, you show up consistently, then you release the need to control timing, recognition, or immediate reward. This matters most when progress feels invisible. Many people quit not because something isn't working, but because it isn't confirming expectations fast enough. They mistake silence for failure, delay for rejection, stillness for stagnation. A Stoic doesn't. A Stoic understands that growth often happens quietly, below the surface, without applause, without reassurance. Here's a daily discipline that builds this mindset. Each morning, choose one thing you will do with full commitment, regardless of outcome. One workout, one focused work block, one honest conversation, one act aligned with your values. At the end of the day, don't ask, did this pay off? Ask, did I do it well? That shift retrains your nervous system. It moves satisfaction from external validation to internal alignment. Over time, something subtle changes. You become less reactive, less rushed, less dependent on signs. Ironically, that's when life starts opening up. Not because you demanded it, but because you stopped interfering. Letting life work is not hoping. It's trusting your discipline enough to step back. When you do, you'll notice something quietly powerful. Things begin to move with less resistance because you finally stopped pushing against them. 6. How to enter 2026 with a lighter mind. A lighter mind doesn't come from optimism. It comes from resolution. Most people carry unfinished battles into a new year, old expectations, old resentments, old stories about how life should have gone. They call it reflection, but it's really emotional baggage disguised as planning. Stoicism offers a cleaner transition. You don't need to fix the past to move forward. You need to release your arguments with it. Entering 2026 with a lighter mind means closing the loop on 3 things: false responsibility, borrowed expectations, and mental noise. Start with false responsibility. Ask yourself honestly, what have I been blaming myself for that was never fully mine? Someone else's reaction, timing you couldn't control, an outcome shaped by variables beyond you. Carrying that weight into a new year only guarantees the same exhaustion in a new calendar. Next, borrowed expectations. Many of your pressures didn't originate within you. They were absorbed from family, culture, comparison, or fear of falling behind. Stoicism asks you to filter those expectations ruthlessly. Keep only what aligns with your values. Release the rest without apology. Finally, mental noise, the constant inner commentary, the internal courtroom where you rehearse defenses, regrets, and justifications. A lighter mind doesn't argue with every thought. It chooses which thoughts deserve attention. Here's a Stoic ritual to practice as the year turns. Sit quietly and write down 3 principles you will govern yourself by in 2026. Not goals, not outcomes. Principles, truths that remain steady regardless of circumstances. For example, I respond, I don't react. I do my work without demanding recognition. I accept delays without self-betrayal. These become your anchors. When pressure rises, you don't ask, how do I make this work? You ask, which principle applies here? That question simplifies everything. A lighter mind isn't empty, it's ordered. It knows what matters and ignores what doesn't. It doesn't need constant reassurance because it's grounded in conduct, not prediction. As 2026 approaches, remember this. You don't need more certainty to feel calm. You need fewer internal negotiations. Decide who you are willing to be consistently and let the rest unfold without resistance. The future doesn't ask you to carry it. It asks you to stand well in the present. Do that, and you enter the new year not hoping things improve, but prepared, steady, and unburdened. Peace doesn't come from knowing how everything will turn out. It comes from knowing who you are, regardless of how it turns out. Throughout this video, the message has been simple but demanding. Relax your grip on what was never yours and tighten your standards where it matters most. You don't need to control people to be respected. You don't need to control outcomes to be effective. You don't need to control the future to live with strength. What you do need is self-governance. When you control your responses, life loses its power to throw you off balance. When you commit to principles instead of chasing reassurance, uncertainty becomes manageable. And when you stop forcing reality to cooperate, reality stops feeling like an enemy. This is not a passive way of living. It's a disciplined one. A Stoic doesn't relax because he expects life to be easy. He relaxes because he's prepared to meet life as it is. Calm is not optimism. Calm is readiness. As you move into 2026, carry this with you. Do your work with care. Speak with intention. Hold boundaries without anger. Accept delays without self-contempt. Let effort be yours. Let outcomes belong to time. If there is one sentence worth remembering, it's this. You don't need life to obey you to live well. You need to obey your values. Govern yourself. The rest will take care of itself. Thank you for watching.